In the silent heart of an isolated space station, 4 newborn creatures cracked their way out of glittering eggs, tiny dragons with eyes like molten gold and voices like distant thunder. And while they bit every scientist who dared approach, they went still the moment a quiet janitor stepped near, watching him with eerie, unblinking trust, as if they had chosen him before they even breathed their first. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video, and tell us in the comments where you are watching from. Now, let's jump into the story. The station floated in silence above a canvas of distant stars. Orbital Study Hub 9 was built for brilliance, not wonder. Its metal halls hummed with quiet machinery and the distant murmur of experiments. But few ever noticed the man who walked them each night. Rion Hale moved like a shadow through the empty corridors, pushing his mop across the polished floor with the calm of routine. To him, the hum of vents and the glow of overhead lights were like old friends. He had learned every creak of the panels, every hiss of the air systems, every quiet place where the station seemed to breathe. Most people saw Rion as part of the background. He wore a plain gray uniform and carried the soft smell of cleaning soap wherever he went. While others chased discoveries and applause, Rion simply kept the world around them clean. Yet inside, he carried something most had forgotten, a quiet curiosity that had never gone out. On that night, while the rest of the station dozed beneath layers of artificial night cycle, Rion was finishing his rounds near Xenobiology Dome B. He moved slowly, careful not to disturb the few sleeping technicians behind the glass walls. The mop bucket wheels rolled softly across the floor. Then, the world changed in a heartbeat. Sentinel, the station's artificial intelligence, spoke suddenly. Its voice was calm, but cut through the silence like a knife. Alert. Unauthorized hatching in Xenobiology Dome B. Research personnel to stations. Security to standby. The alarm lights snapped on, washing the corridor in red. Sirens rose in sharp waves. Rion froze with the mop still in his hands, heart thudding in his chest. He had heard countless alarms during his 5 years on the station, but never this one. Unauthorized hatching. The words echoed like a strange chord. Doors slid open all along the corridor. Researchers in white coats rushed out, half-dressed and wide-eyed. Some carried data table. Others pulled on gloves as they ran. They streamed past Rion like a living current, their voices a jumble of sharp orders and worried questions. Rion stepped back to the wall, letting them flood around him. It would have been easy to turn away, to pretend this was just another mess for someone smarter to handle. That was what he usually did. But something about the way they ran, something in the tremor of their voices, pulled him forward. Curiosity rose inside him like a tide. He parked the mop bucket neatly against the wall and followed at a careful distance. The dome came into view, a silver globe of reinforced glass. Inside, bright white light spilled over polished floors and walls lined with complex machinery. A group of researchers stood around a central cradle filled with 4 shimmering eggs. The eggs were not smooth like birds' eggs. They looked like they had been carved from living gemstones. Each one glowing with its own soft color: copper, emerald, deep ocean blue, and pale silver white. Their surfaces caught the harsh overhead lights and shattered them into sparkling shards that danced across the walls. Dr. Lena Vargas stood closest to the cradle, her dark hair pulled back tight, her voice steady but fast. "Containment fields live, temperature at threshold. Do not breach until signal," she ordered. Beside her, Dr. Arun Saul scrolled through data on a hovering screen, his expression tight. Neural readings spiking. "They're aware," he said quietly. The first egg trembled. A crack spread across its surface like lightning over glass. The scientists leaned in. Instruments clicked to life. The shell broke with a sharp sound, and something small slid out, wet and bright. The creature was no bigger than a house cat. Its scales shone copper like old coins under sunlight. Thin wings folded tight against its sides. Its eyes were bright amber, slitted like a cat's, but burning with an odd light. It lifted its head and hissed, sharp and sudden. A gloved hand reached out slowly, palm open. The creature moved faster than sight. Jaws clamped on the glove with a snap. The scientist yanked her hand back and stumbled. "Aggressive," Dr. Saul said, voice low. The other eggs cracked almost at once. Emerald, blue, and silver-white bodies spilled into the cradle. They pressed together, hissing softly. Each time a hand approached, they struck. When food was offered through mechanical arms, they ignored it. The monitors flashed stress spikes. Ryan stood outside the glass, half hidden behind the taller figures of the crowd. He barely breathed. The tiny creatures were fierce, beautiful, and afraid. No one saw him watching. No one noticed that the hatchlings, amid all their snarling and snapping, had gone still when their eyes found him. Their glowing gazes followed as he shifted his weight. 4 pairs of eyes, bright and unblinking. Ryan lifted both empty hands, without thinking, showing he held nothing. The hatchlings made no move, only stared. Inside the dome, chaos swirled. Scientists shouting, machines humming, containment barriers humming to life in blue arcs around the cradle. Outside the dome, Ryan stood utterly still, a man made invisible by habit, seen only by the eyes of newborn dragons. The alarms faded into the background hum of the station. Red lights softened to steady white. One by one, the researchers began stepping back, muttering and updating logs. Dr. Vargas spoke sharp instructions, already planning the next phase. But Ryan did not hear them. He watched the hatchlings huddle closer together, tiny bodies trembling. He saw the way they watched every movement with sharp suspicion, ready to bite any hand that reached for them. And he saw how they kept glancing at him. The eggshells glittered around them like broken stars. Ryan felt something stir deep inside, something that had been asleep for years. He did not know why the hatchlings were looking at him. He only knew he could not look away. The alarms had stopped, but for Rion Hale, the quiet life he had known was already over. Something had begun, something small and wild and bright, and it was watching him. The station settled into its night cycle, though space itself knew no night. Lights dimmed to a soft glow along the halls of Orbital Study Hub 9, and the rush of footsteps faded into silence. Only the faint hum of machines remained. Rion Hale moved through the calm like he always did, pushing his cleaning cart, the scent of soap trailing behind him. Yet tonight, his thoughts kept drifting back to the xenobiology dome, back to the hatchlings that had stared at him through the glass with eyes far older than their hours of life. The scientists had retreated to their quarters after long hours of failed attempts. The hatchlings had refused food, refused contact, and met every approach with snapping teeth. Rion had watched it all from the shadows. He had seen fear before. In stray animals on abandoned worlds, but never wrapped in scales that shone like crushed gemstones. When he passed Dome B again, the corridor lay empty. Only 2 technicians remained, hunched over monitors, their tired faces washed in blue light. Beyond the glass, the hatchlings lay coiled together in the center of their enclosure. Wings draped over one another like shields. They did not sleep. Their eyes glimmered faintly in the low light, watching everything. Rion paused, his cart squeaking softly. He should have kept moving. It was none of his business. But something about the sight of them, so small, so fierce, and so alone, drew him forward. Almost without thinking, he swiped his maintenance badge. The door slid open with a hiss. The technicians glanced up. One blinked in surprise. "Oh, cleaning crew already? We didn't call for anyone." "Just routine," Rion said quietly. "I'll stay out of your way." They nodded and turned back to their screens, too tired to care. Ryan moved to a corner and began wiping down surfaces with slow, steady strokes. He did not look at the hatchlings, though he felt their eyes on him. They watched every step he took. He kept his movements gentle, his voice low when he spoke. He talked the way he did to lost animals he found behind supply bays. Soft words with no demand in them. "Long day, wasn't it?" he murmured, not expecting an answer. "Too many bright lights." Too many hands reaching all at once. The copper hatchling lifted its head, eyes glowing faintly. The emerald one shifted, its scales rippling like leaves in wind. Ryan kept cleaning, his back to them, his voice calm. "They mean well, you know. The scientists. They just don't know how to be quiet. Not the way you need someone to be." The technicians typed on, ignoring him. The hatchlings inched closer to the energy barrier. Drawn by the sound of his voice, he finished the panel near the enclosure and knelt to wring out his cloth. He risked a glance at them. All 4 were now pressed near the barrier. Their earlier tensions softened. No hissing, no snapping, only watching. Ryan smiled faintly, not enough to show teeth. "You're not monsters," he whispered. "You're just babies in a strange place." The silver-white hatchling chirped, a soft sound like glass tapped by a fingernail. The technicians looked up briefly, then shrugged and returned to their work. Ryan straightened slowly, stretching his back. "That's all for tonight," he told the technicians, who waved him off without looking. He began to push his cart toward the door, but stopped. The hatchlings had pressed even closer to the barrier. The copper one gave a low whine. A technician frowned at her display. "That's odd. Stress levels are climbing again." "Maybe they don't like being alone," Ryan said quietly before he could stop himself. The words hung in the air. The technician tilted her head, then returned to her work. Ryan hesitated, then stepped back toward the barrier. The hatchlings stilled, watching him. The Emerald One rose on delicate claws, performing a tiny, jerky hop, as if caught between fear and hope. Rion slowly placed his hand flat against the barrier. He did not reach through. He only rested his palm on the cold surface. "It's all right," he whispered. "I see you." 4 pairs of glowing eyes met his. Something passed between them. Small, silent, fragile. Rion left a moment later, pushing his cart into the quiet corridor. Behind him, the hatchlings settled together, their small bodies finally still. The monitors showed lowered stress levels, though the tired technicians hardly noticed. Trust had not come through data or force. It had come from quiet hands. And though Rion did not know it yet, that quiet moment had begun to change everything. The next station morning arrived with the same hum of machines, but Ryan Hale felt the air had changed. He sat cross-legged inside Xenobiology Dome B, the hatchlings scattered across him like living jewels. Copper curled warm in his lap, emerald perched across his shoulders, blue balanced on his forearm, and silver-white rested along his thigh. Their small bodies vibrated with a soft, melodic hum that echoed faintly through the dome. Outside the glass walls, the station bustled with quiet wonder. People who once walked past Ryan without a glance now paused to watch. Technicians slowed their steps. Researchers pressed their faces to the glass. Ryan ignored them all. He stroked the copper hatchling's head gently with one finger, speaking to it in a low, steady voice. Dr. Lena Vargas stood nearby with her arms crossed, her usual sharp tone softened by disbelief. "They've completely bonded to you," she said quietly. "Maybe they just needed someone who didn't treat them like a puzzle." Rion replied, still watching the hatchling's glowing eyes. Before Dr. Vargas could answer, the dome door slid open with a hiss. A tall man in a pristine dark uniform entered, flanked by 2 silent aides. His boots struck the floor with clipped precision. The noise startled the hatchlings, who tensed and turned toward him as one. "Administrator Kerr," Dr. Vargas said, straightening. The man nodded curtly. "Dr. Vargas, Dr. Saul, I have reviewed your preliminary reports. Most unexpected." His gaze landed on Rion like a spotlight. "And you must be the maintenance worker." "Rion Hale," Rion said, uneasy. Kerr stepped closer, his cold eyes shifting between Rion and the small creatures. "So, they chose you." "Seems that way," Rion said. "The consortium is very interested in this development," Kerr continued. "These are the first known Draconis hatchlings raised in captivity. Their research value is considerable." The word landed like a stone in Rion's stomach. Kerr turned to Dr. Vargas. "Arrangements are being finalized. A transport vessel is en route from the Central Xenobiological Institute. The hatchlings will be transferred within 36 hours. Ryan blinked. "Transferred?" "Of course," Kerr said, as if it were obvious. "This station lacks the facilities for long-term containment and study. Central has fully equipped biomes. It is the only logical choice." The hatchlings pressed closer to Ryan's body, sensing his sudden tension. Emerald hissed softly, its tiny wings half lifting. "And me?" Ryan asked. Kerr frowned slightly. "You will remain here. Your part is complete. The Central Institute has trained specialists who will continue the work." Ryan felt the words like a cold wind through his chest. "They've bonded to me," he said. "They trust me." "A temporary attachment," Kerr replied smoothly. "They will adapt." Ryan looked down at the copper hatchling nestled in his lap. It gazed back up at him, golden eyes wide and unblinking. He remembered how they had once bitten anyone who came close. Now they slept against him without fear. Dr. Soul shifted uneasily. "Administrator, there may be risks. Separation distress has been documented in the Cygnus field notes." "Irrelevant," Kerr said. "This decision is final. Prepare them for transfer." As Kerr left, the dome felt colder. The hatchlings clung tighter to Rian, as if they understood. The soft hum they usually made had gone silent. After the door closed, Dr. Vargas stepped forward, her expression troubled. "Rian, I know this is hard, but Central really does have better resources." "Resources to study them," Rian said quietly, "not care for them." Dr. Soul hesitated, then spoke softly. "They are intelligent. They may see this as abandonment." Rian stroked Copper's scales, feeling its tiny heartbeat under his palm. "They're not specimens," he said. "They're children." The two scientists exchanged a glance, but said nothing. The station's hum filled the silence. For the rest of the day cycle, preparations began. Specialized containment units arrived from storage. Equipment was calibrated. Staff spoke in clinical terms about sedation protocols and transfer conditions. The hatchlings grew restless. They snapped at any hand but Rian's. They refused food unless he offered it. Their stress readings climbed steadily on the monitors. Dr. Vargas watched the numbers rise and frowned. "This could affect their development if it continues." "They know," Rian said, holding Copper close. "They know what's coming." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. As the night cycle returned, Rian sat alone, with the hatchlings nestled against him, their small bodies trembling in uneasy sleep. Beyond the dome's glass, the station moved on, unaware that inside, something fragile was about to be broken, and Rian Hale quietly decided that he could not let the station's artificial dawn rose in pale gold across the glass panels of Xenobiology Dome B. It should have been a normal morning, yet tension lay heavy over the lab. The technicians moved with stiff urgency, checking containment units and calibrating scanners. Dr. Lena Vargas reviewed a long list on her tablet, while Dr. Arun Soul ran quiet tests on air composition levels. They spoke little, their voices low. Ryan Hale sat on the floor near the center habitat, the 4 hatchlings draped across him like living threads of color. Copper rested in his lap. Emerald curved along his shoulders. Blue curled on his arm, and silver-white coiled around his ankles. Their tiny claws clung gently to his clothing, as if they feared he might vanish. He whispered to them while the lab bustled around him. "I know you're scared," he murmured, keeping his tone steady. "But you're not alone. Not while I'm here." Their soft, harmonic hum rose in response, faint but steady, like distant chimes. The dome door opened sharply. Administrator Kerr entered with the precise steps of someone used to control. Behind him came 2 uniformed security officers, and a pair of aides carrying data cases. The hatchlings immediately went still, their glowing eyes locking on the strangers. "Status?" Kerr demanded. "All transfer systems prepared," Dr. Vargas answered. Her voice held no emotion. "Good," Kerr said. His gaze swept over the scene, pausing on Ryan. "Remove them from the caretaker. Place them in the transport cradles." The words struck like a stone dropped into still water. The hatchlings tightened their grip on Ryan. Copper hissed softly, a sound closer to heartbreak than threat. Ryan met Kerr's cold stare. "This will hurt them," he said quietly. "They will adapt," Kerr replied. Dr. Soul spoke carefully. "Administrator, the Cygnus records warned of severe stress if bonded juveniles are separated from their chosen anchor. Their development could, that is, irrelevant." Care cut in. "Begin." The security officers stepped forward. The hatchlings let out a sudden, piercing cry that echoed through the dome like a blade of sound. It was a mournful, layered note, their voices blending into something far larger than their small bodies. The sound froze everyone. Ryan rose slowly to his feet, the hatchlings clinging to him. His voice was steady, though his heart pounded. "Listen to them. They understand what you're doing. They think you're taking them forever." For a moment, no one spoke. Even Care stood still, his mouth a thin line. Then Dr. Vargas set her tablet down. "Administrator, he's right. They are displaying clear emotional distress. Continuing this may compromise both their health and the integrity of our data." Dr. Saul nodded. "There could be another way." Care's gaze hardened. "Another way? Allow them to remain here," Dr. Vargas said quickly. "At least until they're stable. We can convert Dome B into a proper habitat, with Rion as their primary contact. Minimal risk, controlled environment, continued observation." "And the Central Institute?" Kerr asked sharply. "They will still receive full data," Dr. Saul replied. "But removing the hatchlings now will likely destroy the only successful bond ever recorded. That would be a waste." Kerr studied the hatchlings, their eyes fixed on Rion with unblinking devotion. At last he exhaled slowly. "Very well. A provisional arrangement. They remain here under strict oversight, but the Institute will review the situation in 30 days. The tension in the room cracked like thin ice. The hatchlings quieted, their tiny bodies relaxing against Rion. Copper gave a soft chirp that sounded almost like relief. Kerr turned sharply and left with his aides, the door sliding shut behind them. Silence lingered. Dr. Vargas let out a slow breath. "You bought them time," she said. Rion sank back to the floor, the hatchlings climbing onto him again. "They just needed someone to see them," he whispered. Dr. Saul crouched beside him. "Maybe that's what they needed all along." The station lights brightened toward full day as the hatchlings curled into Rion's arms, their humming soft and content. They were no longer research subjects. Not entirely. Not anymore. And for the first time, Orbital Study Hub 9 felt less like a cold machine and more like the beginning of something living.